We're on NFL.com, and I still have Antonio Brown on my mind. And one thing I have on my mind about him is the question, what does this mean for the Raiders? Now that they got rid of him, and they have a shortage of wide receivers, they brought back Keelan Doss from the Jaguars practice squad. But what does this mean for the Raiders? This is Monday Night Football, coming up tonight, and we're on NFL.com, and let's check their headlines. Brady on AB. We'll figure out how to make it work. Okay? Where are these stories about the Raiders? What we learned. How about what we can learn? What about the Raiders? Where is the stories on the Raiders? Here's a thing from Mike Tomlin. Steelers not ready for prime time. Why isn't there a thing about Mike Tomlin and how he put up with Antonio Brown for all those years? There's nothing. There's nothing looking. What are the Raiders going to do without Antonio Brown? Where's that story? Keep on strolling, I'm not seeing anything. 100 greatest photos. I'm not even going to look through this, because I already did. They show about 2 Raiders. That's it. 2 Raiders in the history of the NFL. 2 pitches, rather. But there's nothing about tonight's game. Raiders now, the number 1 wide receiver is Terrell Williams. I think that's his name. He just came over. The Raiders have an entire new wide receiver core. They have Grant. Hunter Renfrow is a rookie. They have no experience really at the wide receiver core. They don't really have a true number 1 wide receiver anymore. So what are they going to use tonight? What sort of offense will they run? Will they go with a heavy set, like a running set? Who's going to replace Antonio Brown on the team? Nelson has got an ankle sprain. Will he play at all? Who will be on the opposite side of Williams? Hunter Renfro's thought to be put in a slot. So they're going to use Grant? Or is it going to be Keelan Doss? Keelan Doss was already low man on the totem pole. He did not make the club because they had enough wide receivers to fill the void of last year. I mean, they have a completely different wide receiver core. It's amazing. But there's no stories on this. There's no opinions about this. It's all about Antonio Brown. They're arguing back and forth whether he premeditated this whole thing, which most Raider fans believe he did. And some Raider fans are trying to say, oh, this is all John Gruden's fault. He played the softy with him, blah, blah, blah. And it's all the Raiders' fault. Why did they just release him? Why didn't they trade him? Why didn't they suspend him and give him the 5-day letter? If they suspended him and gave him the 5-day letter, he would show up, first of all. He would eventually show up and he would get paid. He would definitely get paid. And they'd be on the hook next year for the pay, because it's guaranteed money. All he had to do was show up and be the biggest cancer the world has ever known. So stop blaming Gruden and blaming Mike Mayock and blaming Mark Davis. They had to do what they had to do. And stop thinking like, oh, if Al Davis was here, oh, he'd put his foot down. No, he actually wouldn't. He actually tolerated people like this. Then no one's been like this, but he would tolerate players being undisciplined because he wasn't a disciplinarian. John Gruden, he's part disciplinarian. There's nothing he could have done differently. He did everything possible to try to get him to capitulate, to actually participate. He wasn't there the whole summer. He either had the blister problem or he had the helmet problem. He didn't participate. Keelan Doss was the one featured on Hard Knocks, not him. But really, this bothers me that the NFL, in their 100th year, they put the Raiders on Monday Night Football for some reason. They were all, for all time, they were famous on Monday Night Football when it was only one game. But there's no talk about them. This is the next game coming up, or the second to next game coming up. And how will the Raiders function without him? No one even gives a crap about the Raiders. That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, it was bad enough years ago that they would discount them in every way. But now the discounting is just, we're not even going to talk about them. We're not going to just talk bad about them. We're just going to call them the most dysfunctional franchise in the history of the NFL. They got one winning season in like 17 years. And we're just going to pretend like they don't exist. Going to Las Vegas next year, you think that would be a big thing? There was a story the other day that the value of the franchise has increased $1.6 billion or something since the Raiders decided to go to Las Vegas. There should be stories out there. Okay, they don't have Antonio Brown because he played his way out of Oakland. Everything he did was trying to get out of Oakland. You know, I was thinking he had a problem, a mental problem, and I was sort of going through the different type of mental problems he could possibly have. Bipolar, hyperactivity disorder, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I was thinking of all the different types of things. I was giving him the benefit of the doubt. After what he did, he is definitely psychopathic. All he cares about is himself. He will lie and cheat his way just to get what he needs, what he wants. That is exactly what he did. But what about the Raiders? They're a team. Why don't they get any love? I mean, they had a fantastic offseason. They got a new right tackle. Tonight will feature a new fullback, a new running back, and Josh Jacobs. Shouldn't that like create some, like, stir some sort of energy? Doesn't do anything? There's nothing in the headlines right here. I mean, they have a story about the Cowboys extension for Dak Prescott. What does that even mean? That's not about the games. What about the Raiders? Who are they going to play opposite Williams? There's no talk. This is unbelievable, and Raider fans have come to expect this, but it's really bad right now, I'd say. It's all the Antonio Brown show. No one cares about the Raiders. The Raiders are going to have to care about themselves. So you look around here. Kansas City beats up on the Jaguars. Cleveland got their new diva, Odell Beckham Jr. He wore a fancy watch to the game, and they got trounced. A lot of people think the first games are kind of like preseason because the starters don't play in preseason. So this could all change. Who knows? Miami totally tanked it. Now players on that team are talking. They want out. Now, players have done that before when teams tank on purpose. They want out. Raiders last year. They didn't want to play certain players. What's his name? The defensive end there. So they just saw what Antonio Brown did. So they're going to do the same thing. Think about what this represents right here with the collective bargaining agreement coming up 2020. They need a new agreement. Now owners are going to be like, they're probably going to side with the Raiders ownership. Look what this does. A player can decide where he goes now, and he can manipulate the system to get out of town and get a new deal just like that. How about collusion? I mean, those should be some of the stories right here. Collusion. The Patriots actually tried to get Brown before. They were going to give him a number 1 pick to Pittsburgh. There's no story about collusion. There's no story about the Raiders tonight. This is pathetic journalism. Raiders are one of the teams in the NFL. They've won 3 Super Bowls, but there's no talk about them. The 100th year in the NFL is totally forgotten about the Raiders. Thanks a lot.